It's been a tremendous joy, one of the great joys of this past year, to be able to help be part of the Brazos Fellows program. And what I'm going to do here just for a couple minutes is talk about the tutoring dimension of it. So you heard Paul talk in the beginning about sort of the four pillars, if you will, of the Brazos Fellows program, and that is vocational discernment, which we then heard a little bit more about, spiritual disciplines, theological training, which Alex just shared about, and shared life. The way I envision tutoring working, and we shouldn't think of tutoring as sort of how we do in the American context with helping sort of elementary school kids who are failing to meet certain grades and those types of things. But it's based on the Oxbridge system, the historic Oxford-Cambridge system of tutoring. And the idea is that you are, as Paul has sort of emphasized over and over again, reading with somebody. You're entering into a partnership with them, not being taught by, right? That's more of a lecture format. I'll explain more of that here in a moment, but I think that this dimension of the program occupies a critical space in terms of sort of forming a bridge between what fellows are learning, right, Tuesday and Thursday, what Alex just talked about in these extended periods of study, and then connecting that to vocational discernment. The tutoring relationship, I think, provides a crucial bridge in that regard. And it's built around exploring a particular question or a series of questions in detail over the course of the year. Paul made a great statement in the introduction to tutoring at the beginning, way back in August, to all of us tutors, that the best people to think with oftentimes are not those who are like-minded, but those who are like-hearted, right? Who share similar affections, desires, loves, right? And so that's the idea behind what we are doing with tutoring is the tutor and the tutee. Is that what we settled on? Whatever they're coming together around a subject with a shared love, a shared outlook in that regard. So it's been one of just an incredible joy this year to work with Jess. We met originally back in August. I guess we met originally before that in the interviewing process. But first sat down and I got to learn about the things that Jess was super interested in. I hope you don't mind me sharing a little bit about what we've been addressing this year. But she came in with these questions. What is the relationship between truth and reconciliation? What does it mean for Christ to be truth? And what does it mean for groups to be reconciled vis-a-vis individuals, right? So these are sort of the lines of inquiry that we've kept open throughout the year and tried to address from different angles. And I could go on for much of the afternoon talking about the different sort of contours of the conversations, but I'll share three brief ways that we have sort of approached these questions. And oftentimes it takes the shape of assigning a particular text, which we both read and then come together and discuss, normally every 2 to 3 weeks or so. So it's been this regular sort of habit pattern throughout the year. We first went to Scripture, right? Looked at what does Scripture have to say about truth and reconciliation. Let's pick out those moments, especially in the Old Testament, is where we started, where we see moments of reconciliation. So we saw things like Jacob and Esau being reconciled. Nathan's confrontation of David, a very sort of truth-seeking encounter, right? And one of the things that Jess noticed very early on, as we're sort of building towards this, what is truth and reconciliation, towards the theology, if you want to even call it that, of truth and reconciliation, is how it has, reconciliation often brings new life. Right, we see that in many episodes in the Bible, as well as redemption of property, of family members. Things are being reconstituted. This actually goes really, really well with the scripture reading this morning, right? From 2 Corinthians 5, that Christ has given us the ministry of reconciliation. And so this was sort of our foray into it. And then we wanted to look at a particular instance in Christian history where truth and reconciliation may have played out in ways that are just not familiar with us today. And so we were particularly interested in a racially fractured area, and we turned to Archbishop Desmond Tutu's No Future Without Forgiveness, which is a great book, a book I had not read before. But he talked a lot about how reconciliation is equally crucial to both sides, right? Not just the victims, right? So part of what was going on in South Africa after apartheid is white oppressors, if you want to, the people that were in charge, descendants of colonists, right, were having their, as being part of these reconciliation processes, were having their humanity regathered, if you will. That just by participating, this is what Tutu is talking about, just by participating in some of these structures, they did not realize it at the time, but part of their humanity was being forfeited. So part of the act of reconciliation in today's world involves sort of this reconstitution of humanity. Third area that we looked at, we then turned, and there's been lots of different points along the way that we've camped, but we turned to the early church. A lot of the readings that had been going on Tuesdays and Thursdays dealt with the early church, and so we thought a bit about Athanasius and what his great treatise on the Incarnation has to do with truth and reconciliation today in racially fractured areas. And so it was sort of this moment of beginning to see how God has reconciled Jew and Gentile, two historically competing groups, right, in the Incarnation. And we've let that sort of guide us over the course of the last few weeks in thinking about how it is that God has brought Gentiles in, like that act of reconciliation. We've turned recently to thinking about the 4 Gentile women in Jesus' genealogy. And what's that telling us about reconciliation? And circling that back to what does that mean for truth-telling in today's world? So I give all those as an example of a question, a deep question, a very important question that is pressing on us today, and how that was brought into a particular conversation over the course of the year, and hopefully serves as a way in Brazos Fellows to bridge the theological training and vocational discernment. I think what I'll just wrap up with is the beauty of a dedicated space, right? This is so rare in today's world where we just sort of set up our roadmap, right, of needing to get through high school, through college, get a job, have a family, and so on and so forth, right? Of taking a step back, of devoting yourself to deep study and to deeply hearing from God over the course of the year is just a profound program, and one it's just been a great joy and privilege to be part of this year. So thank you to the Guttakers for inviting me into this, and Jess, thank you so much for what a rich year it's been talking about these questions.